We were just discussing the issue with Alex Jones and how the jury has awarded a $45 million punitive judgment, but it doesn't really matter because due to Texas law's caps, his total liability, including the compensation liability, appears to be limited to $6.8 million. So that $45 million is going to get reduced real fast based on our prior discussion. So it looks like Alex Jones is only on the hook for $6.8 million. But someone else is having a bad day and being ordered to pay a lot of money, a lot more than $6.8 million, in fact. Kevin Spacey has been ordered to pay $31 million to the House of Cards production company for his alleged sexual misconduct. Kevin Spacey's having a bad day. He has been found to owe House of Cards $31 million in damages. So let's get started with this story. A judge has ordered Kevin Spacey to pay House of Cards production company nearly $31 million for alleged sexual misconduct behind the scenes of the Netflix drama House of Cards. Spacey, who famously played Frank Underwood, was kicked off the series during its 6th season after facing allegations that he had assaulted and preyed upon young men, including apparently a House of Cards production assistant who said that Spacey groped him, which prompted the production company's investigation. So as has been alleged, Kevin Spacey has a bit of a self-control problem and has done some questionable things in the past and has been found liable for some questionable things with respect to one of the production assistants on House of Cards. So prompting the production company to investigate. The Los Angeles Superior Court judge confirmed an award previously handed down by an arbitrator in October 2020, which consisted of around $29.5 million in damages and $1.5 million in costs and fees. So the notable thing here, in case you're wondering, hey, why am I just hearing about this for the first time now, right? There wasn't a trial. There wasn't a trial because this was subject to an arbitration agreement, right? As so many contracts are, right? Kevin Spacey is an employee. The production assistant is an employee, right? There was some agreement to arbitrate the claim. So you never got to see the trial because it was all done privately by a private arbitrator behind closed doors, as one does, right? And so the arbitration process in 2020 said, hey, how about you pay us these $30 million? And Kevin Spacey's like, I don't want to. So then with an arbitration award in hand, you then go to court and say, I'd like that judgment entered now. And the court is going to enter it because of the Arbitration Act, right? There's an Arbitration Act under federal law, which basically authorizes this. So, you go to court and it's like, I like the judgment entered, and the court says, okay, right? The arbitrator reached this agreement. I'm entering it. Now you have a legal judgment for this amount. So that's why you're just hearing about this today. The production company had argued Spacey owed them millions of dollars of lost profit because his misconduct forced them to remove him from the 6th season of the show, and it had to trim the season from 13 episodes to 8. Also, it wasn't very good. Ruling in the producer's favor, the arbitrator, the private judge, found Spacey's behavior constituted a material breach of his agreement as an actor and the executive producing agreements. So he's in breach of contract. The damages are $30 million, $31 million. Earlier this year, Spacey's attorneys attempted to throw out the $31 million arbitration award, saying his behavior amounted to nothing more than sexual innuendo and innocent horseplay and did not violate the anti-harassment policy. Yeah, unfortunately, those arguments, to the extent that they would exist, are arbitrations you make before the arbitrator, because that's what they're there for, right? You have an arbitration agreement. And so you go to the arbitrator and you make those arguments or not. And right, the arbitrator is the finder of fact. They're the judge. They hear the evidence and they came up with a finding. And so you say, well, my behavior was innocent, but the arbitrator already reached a decision based on that. So the court's basically going to be like, the law authorizes arbitrations and you've done the arbitration. So I'm not going to relitigate that because of course I'm not. Spacey was first accused of misconduct in 2017 in a BuzzFeed article, in which actor Anthony Rapp alleged that Spacey had made advances on him in 1986 when Rapp was 14. As I mentioned, there has been some allegations regarding Spacey that perhaps he has a bit of a control problem, perhaps possibly involving underage use, and it's a little bit, yeah. Okay, production on House of Cards was suspended 2 days later. 2 days after that, CNN published a story that accused Spacey of creating a toxic environment on the set by making crude comments and engaging in non-consensual touching of young male staffers. Well, the arbitrator thought there was enough evidence of that, so yeah. An arbitration, by the way, is mostly like a trial. I mean, it's subject to its own rules of the arbitration agreement, but it's mostly like a trial. You have witnesses and depositions and evidence and everything. It's just a private judge. If you want an example of an arbitration, by the way, an example that's very public is Judge Judy. Judge Judy is an arbitrator. That's basically what she does, right? It's a very public, fancy show, but as a legal aspect, what she's doing, she's an arbitrator. People agree to have her cases arbitrated by her pursuant to her agreements. Her agreements are legally binding. She's an arbitrator. And she's just a very fancy one with a very fancy TV show. And right, so you can have any kind of process basically you want. It's private justice, but you agree to it. So, there you go. Okay. So this Judge Judy, apparently whoever it was, how about the $31 million? The arbitrator viewed videotaped deposition testimony and found that Spacey violated the sexual harassment policy with respect to 5 different crew members. So not just one, how about 5? According to Spacey's lawyers, that conduct was not part of the CNN story and only came to light after a subsequent internal investigation. Yeah, I would think so. Yes, and they went and arbitrated that, and then you have a problem. They argued the production company's move to scrap 2 episodes of the show that already gone into production and started over was forced by Netflix CEO's decision. Therefore, they contend the damages they ultimately suffered could not have been caused by the alleged misconduct that surfaced later on. Maybe, maybe not, but, that's what the arbitrator is for. The arbitrator noted that the production company presented a straightforward damages claim based on concrete numbers, and the calculations of damages were appropriately conservative and relied almost entirely on their actual costs and contracted for revenues. So, they were able to prove their damages to the tune of $31 million. In May, Spacey, of course, was charged with 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in actions without consent by the UK's Crown Prosecution Service. So the UK is after him criminally, which has spent over a year reviewing a file passed to them by the Metropolitan Police. The alleged incidents took place in London and Gloucestershire between 2005 and 2013. So the UK wants him for 4 different counts of, Despite these charges, Spacey is still set to appear on an upcoming film entitled Peter 5'8". Well, okay. While it is unfortunate the increased negative press is timed with Kevin's returning to work, it is also to be expected, the film producer said in a statement to Variety. There are those who wish for him not to act, but they're outnumbered by fans worldwide who await an artist they've enjoyed for decades returning to screen. Okay, the production has no knowledge or comment of the various swirling allegations and believed to be a matter for the courts to determine validity if it exists. Well, one court just determined it existed to the tune of $31 million, but what's that between friends? Peter 5'8" is a film for fans who cared more about the art than scandal. The production company has no comment. Let's wrap this up. Thus, that brings us to the end of the article about Kevin Spacey, who has been found by an arbitrator pursuant to an arbitration agreement to owe $31 million to the production company of House of Cards for the mistreatment of 5 different staff members, and so forth and so on. And a judge today entered the judgment in a legal proceeding to enforce the arbitration agreement. So now it's legally operable. And so now they can go collect on it. So fun. And also Kevin Spacey is facing charges in the UK related to various other staff members that he might have mistreated, and also has some history. So things are not going great for Kevin Spacey. So I suppose Alex Jones can take some comfort that his damages of a little less than $7 million, once all the caps are applied, relevant to Texas law, doesn't look so bad vis-a-vis the misfortune that has befallen Kevin Spacey. At least from the moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.